Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Cleansing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight. Interesting night in the NBA. Not what anybody would have predicted with the Sixers and Trailblazers evening their series at 1-1. Jay, crazy man, crazy night.
Great. Listen, the NBA, with how much money could we have made, Mike, if we would have said that the only series in the first five that are going to go 2-0 were the Cavs over the Raptors? No one thought that. If we probably, honestly, it probably was the most least likely series out of the five to be 2-0, and now we're up 2-0. So I guess we're going to just kind of dive in. I don't know. Does it make most sense to talk about the series that played yesterday, or do you want to start with the games tonight and then start with the games tonight? Okay, so let's start with Boston. Boston throttles the Sixers in the first game. Like, it was not even a competitive game, right? It's not even competitive first game. And then tonight, all night, the Sixers are like up 6 points. They're up 8 points. And I may have had a phone call with a certain podcast host about just after halftime. I don't know who it was, maybe Mike Cleansing. And I was like, Mike, the Sixers are up 8, and the Spurs were losing by 13 now. And then they ended up actually, by the time we talked on the phone, they were winning. And you said, "Oh, neither of those are going to hold." Well, I think we can honestly agree that if Wemby doesn't get hurt, and we'll get there, that probably doesn't hold. That is an abomination for the Sixers to. I mean, they ended up winning by what? 111-97. Is that right? They won by 14 points. Like, how can you go from just destroying the team to that happening? I mean, you look at they won by 32 points. And the Sixers don't even have Embiid. I mean, the first game, the Sixers shot 39% from the field. They were terrible. There was no chance. The defense was just so good. And then tonight, they just made their shots. The Celtics did not shoot the ball very well. 76ers shot 48% from the field, but they shot a 49% from behind their 19 threes. The Celtics, they shot 26%. They shot 50 threes, and they 26%. That's the kiss of death right there. That's it right there.
That's the game. So look, I think it comes down to the Celtics 13 of 50 from three. And as you're watching that game, and I didn't see the first half. I got into the game at about halfway through the third quarter when I got home from Madeline's basketball practice. And from that point forward, the shot selection of the Celtics was just absolutely atrocious. And there were so many bad threes that they took. And look, that's been the Celtics' problem
when they've
over
lost.
The last 2 or 3 years, right? When they lost those 2 games to the Knicks last year in the playoffs at home, games 1 and 2 in that series, it was just because they kept firing indiscriminately, whether or not the ball was going in the basket or it wasn't. And look, this is another frequent piece of conversation that we've had on the pod about Jason Tatum and his ranking in the NBA superstar hierarchy. And I don't want to pile on a guy who is coming off an ACL tear, or off an Achilles tear, but I'm going to pile on a guy who's coming off an Achilles tear. He took a couple of really horrendous shots when Boston looked like they were about to kind of regain momentum. I think there was one, they were down 3, and Tatum dribbled the ball up the floor, a no pass possession, and pulled up for a contested 3 at the top of the key that didn't go in. He had the one turnover where he tried to throw it in the middle of the floor, and I think Edgecombe picked it off, or maybe Paul George picked it off. But Tatum just was not very good tonight. And this speaks to Boston's, I guess, philosophy and what Missoula has preached, that we're going to do what we do regardless of what the outcome is, because we believe in the process and the math of getting up that many threes, that eventually it's going to pan out for you. The unfortunate part is when it doesn't, it looks really bad. And in this case, if Boston just would have had a little bit better shot selection and attacked the rim a little bit more, I think they would have had an opportunity, because Philly went cold there about midway through the fourth quarter, and both teams really weren't getting very much done offensively.
Yep.
And if Philly would have gotten hot at that point, the game would have been over a lot earlier. And if Boston would have taken the ball to the basket and tried to generate some looks closer beyond or in front of the 3-point line, I think they would have had a much better opportunity to be able to take that game. There just were too many possessions for Boston where they looked disjointed, and Jaylen Brown made a couple of wild threes too in the fourth quarter with guys draped all over him that I'm not quite sure how those shots even went in. If you're Boston though, it's borderline. I mean, it's not a disaster. I still think Boston is going to take care of business in this series, but part of the problem is the longer the series goes, the more likely it is that there's a chance that Embiid comes back and plays. Embiid is not going to be healthy for the entirety of any kind of playoff run, but if Joel Embiid comes back in game 4 or game 5 of this series, could he be healthy enough to play 3 or 4 games in this series and potentially put up 35 a night? It certainly is possible. Maxey was 11 for 28 tonight, but despite that, it felt like he controlled every aspect of the entire game and felt like he could get whatever shot he wanted at whatever
Yep.
point he wanted. And Edgecombe was really good for a guy who's, I think they showed a graphic at the end of the game during the interview that he was the youngest player in the history of the NBA to get 30 and 10 in a playoff game. And we're talking that's for a 6'4" guard. He's had a really, really good rookie year. And there are probably some years where he might have been the rookie of the year. But tonight, with his athleticism and his ability to shoot the ball, between him and Maxey, I think they combined to make, I forget how many threes here. The two of them combined made, let me look here. Maxey had 5 and Edgecombe had 6. So together they were 11 for 22 from 3. So if those two guys are going to shoot 11 for 22 from 3, Philly's going to have a chance in this series with or without Embiid. And look, Boston's not going to shoot 13 for 50 probably in another game the whole series, but the fact that Boston doesn't adjust what they're doing when it's seemingly not their night from 3 is something that, man, I just look at it and it doesn't. At some point, you have to just figure out the threes aren't dropping. Is there something else we could do? Can we take the ball to the basket? And that's where I feel like the Celtics as a team fall short. And that's one of the things that I've always felt with Tatum, that there's just that 1%, that one more step, that just making better decisions. I just continue to put him in a class slightly below the guys who are at the very, very top. He's in that next tier. I don't think he's reached that top, and I don't think it has anything to do with the Achilles tear. I just think it has to do with there's just a little bit off when it comes to Tatum being that guy in big moments. He settles for too many stupid step back threes when a guy with his athleticism and skill set should be able to get to the
Listen,
basket.
unplayable in the Olympics. Jaylen Brown was the MVP when they won the championship.
Yep. Well said.
I mean, do I have to say anything else?
No, you really
Playable
don't.
in the Olympics.
Yeah,
Playable in the Olympics.
Yeah. You don't really have to say anything, but that sums it up. It does characterize kind of what we're saying. Look, Tatum's a great player.
Well, he was
Any
great game 1, Mike. He was great. He was great.
Any team would love to have him. Any team would love to have Jason Tatum on their team. But at the same time, I still feel like he's a dollar short of being at that top 5 player in the league, where I have no concern whatsoever whether or not he's going to come through in a big moment. I still feel like his shot selection and just there's some it factor, there's something missing when it comes to Tatum being an absolute top 5 superstar in the league. And tonight it cost Boston. I still think that the Celtics are the better team, but
so what? Okay, so I guess that's how let's cap each game / series by saying how many games is it going to go. Now, I'm going to say originally, I don't think did I say? Oh, we didn't predict predictions on this one because we didn't do a podcast. I probably would have said Boston in 4, being honest. It's probably wrong. I'm going to say Boston in 5. I don't think that the Sixers win another game. I just don't. Boston in 5. I'm going to go there. I just don't. I think this was their game. They won it. They stole this one. The Celtics are going to come back with a vengeance, and then they're going to win both games in Philly, and then Santa's going to boo them, and then go home and finish the series off. I'm going Boston in 5.
All right, I'll give Philly one home game. I think they get one of the two in Philly, take it to game 5 in Boston, and then it gets pretty interesting from there. I think Boston in 6 seems reasonable to me. If Embiid were somehow to come back in this series and be, like I said, functional, and I continue to harp on this point, I do not in any way, shape, or form think that Joel Embiid is coming back from the appendectomy to lead the Philadelphia Sixers on a 6-week run through the Eastern Conference playoffs. But is it possible that Joel Embiid could come back, Philly down 3-2 in game 6, and play games 6 and 7 and put up a combined 75 or 80 points in those two games? Sure, I think that's entirely possible. But I'm going to go Boston in 6, despite the fact that Boston has its issues. I still think that when they're locked in and they shoot the ball even reasonably well, they make a couple more threes and it's a completely different game because they're going to keep shooting them. And so the problem they ran into with the Knicks last year is they had multiple games where the ball didn't go in. And if that happens again, they could very easily find themselves in a position that they don't want to be in, facing down a game 6 or a game 7 with Philadelphia. But the odds would tell you over the course of the year, and this is what Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics believe, that if you keep firing, the math is going to even itself out, and eventually they're going to win that. They're going to win that battle, and it's going to tilt in their favor. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. But I'll give Philly a home win and say Boston in 6 at this point.
All right. So then we're going to transition to the second game of the night. That was, because they're running 3 games right now. But second game, the Spurs hosting the Portland Trailblazers. Portland gets off to a hot start. The Spurs come back. And then the Eiffel Tower, I don't know what, goes tumbling down. And this is the fear, right? This is the fear. He is a 7'6" guy falling to the ground, lands on his face. He clearly had a concussion. Like, just watching him, his hands did that thing that the quarterback's hands do. There's, in my opinion, his best case scenario is coming back in 7 days, and I don't even think that's maybe realistic. Like, I think that, game 5 is in 7 days. Game 7 is in 10 days, I think. Is that right? I think that's what I read, or game 5 is in 6 days, and the game 7 will be in 10 days or something. But I just don't know if he comes back. I mean, here's the bottom line. The Spurs should still be able to win the series without him, okay? But it's surely going to be more interesting than it should be. The Spurs have gone through the season at times without him. So I think they're used to playing. Now, here's the other problem, though. I don't know if you saw down the stretch. You had Harrison Barnes get hurt, land on his wrist. You had Dylan Harper get hurt. Got his fingers caught up in something. So I'm like, I don't know the ramifications of those injuries and how severe they are. Obviously, Harrison Barnes went immediately to the locker room. I'll see if there's been any report on that. But a team that we both thought had a chance to at least compete for an NBA championship, now their livelihood is on Victor Wembanyama's face not hitting recovering from a landing on the floor. And trust me, no one's happy about this. Even a Portland fan can't be happy about it. Or maybe they can be. I don't know. But I mean, he's just, I don't know. It's concerning. This goes back to just all the concerns we've talked about with his height, and it clearly, you just watch it and he's just not coordinating. He's just goofy looking. No, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not being mean, I don't think, but just clearly coordination is a problem for a guy who's 7'6". And that shouldn't surprise anyone. Coordination is hard for me, and I'm 6'4", Mike. All right.
Well, look, there's a high center of gravity, right? And when you get
Mm-hmm.
knocked over and you're falling from a great distance, the speed at which you're falling tends to pick up the higher that you're falling from. And that's what we're looking at with Wembenyama. I have the league's concussion protocol guidelines from an article on ESPN. Here's what it says. A player must have at least 48 hours of inactivity and recovery after the time of the injury. So theoretically, that puts him, the game on Friday is outside of that initial period. It says, and then must hit several benchmarks while being symptom free before he is cleared to play. He'll then require clearance from a team doctor in consultation with a league protocol doctor. So you got a team doctor, you got a league doctor, you've got a mandated 48 hours of inactivity, and then you've got whatever the benchmarks are, I'm assuming, which are based upon his initial benchmark testing that then he has to be able to meet those standards that he originally put up there prior to the concussion. So again, obviously with head injuries, we have no idea. Some people recover from those very, very quickly. Other people, those symptoms, depending upon what they are, can linger for quite some time. Obviously, it goes without saying that the removal of Victor Wembanyama from the Spurs lineup completely changes who they are. If you go back to game one, Wemby debuts in the playoffs with 35 points and just several ridiculous plays that bringing the ball up the floor where he's going behind his back, he's shooting threes. He hit the 1-3 out of the corner where he's kind of fading out of bounds. For a guy who's 7'6", you talked about again his coordination, and for a guy at that size, the things that he can do with the ball, the things that he can do with his body, just the length that he has, he was again maybe not as dominant at both ends in that opening game. Like his rebounding totals weren't that high and he didn't block a ton of shots, but he makes his presence felt everywhere. Even when he's not blocking a shot, he just is intimidating, altering what the other team is trying to do. And you look at the Spurs without him, and they very, very quickly become a pretty ordinary team. And hence, you lose to the Portland Trailblazers, who were the 7 seed in the playoffs. And look, Portland played really well in the play-in and then gave San Antonio a good game for 2.5 quarters in game one. And then tonight, they just kept coming and didn't quit. And obviously, if you're them and you look and you see when Wembanyama's out, if you want to have any chance in this series, you have to win this game when he's not there. Because clearly, if you're Portland, you're counting on him coming back in game 3 at full strength. So you had to be ready to play tonight. And Portland, I would say, was impressive. I really enjoyed the Dylan Harper versus Scoot Henderson duel there at the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth, where those two guys were matched up against each other. And Scoot was doing work on one end and Dylan Harper was doing work on the other, and they were both guarding each other. Scoot tonight, and he's been coming around over the course of the season. He's continued to get better and better as the season goes along.
Tonight was his best game of the season, right?
I would
By
think
far.
so. Probably the best game of his career in terms of, especially considering the stakes. And he shot it well. I think he was 6 for 10 from 3, and he got to the rim, looked explosive going to the basket. His problem since he's been in the league, well, two problems. One, not a great 3-point shooter. Two, what he was supposed to be or what he was touted as coming out of into the draft was that he was an explosive finisher. And he really hasn't been that. Like he has the burst of athleticism, but he hasn't really played above the rim very much. He had the one drive and he got fouled by Champagny and missed the dunk, but he just was more forceful on both ends. And you could tell that it's funny when you watch a guy who has confidence versus a guy who maybe is still a little bit unsure of himself. And I'd say throughout most of his career, Scoots played like a guy who's kind of been unsure of himself. And tonight he looked like a guy who was very confident in what he was doing. You could see that when he was trying to move into open spots or when he had the ball in his hands, like he wanted the ball to be able to score or have the ball in his hands to make decisions. And if you're Portland, that's got to be super, super encouraging, not just for the moment of winning game 2 in this playoff series or even what it means for this particular playoff run. But if Scoot can develop into a legitimate, and I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar player like maybe people thought he might be coming out, but if he could develop into a guy that is a solid starter, maybe a borderline all-star type player, that really changes what Portland can be. Because we talked about it when we've discussed Portland, which hasn't been often on the podcast, but any team that's rebuilding, it's like you need a star player. And we talked about how Portland had really kind of one chance, one bite at the apple with that number 2 pick to get the right guy and pick Scoot, who's been fine to this point in his career, but certainly hasn't lived up to the number 2 pick billing. And then on the other hand, Portland makes the trade with the Wizards and gets Avdia, who clearly in this short amount of time in the play-in and then these first 2 games has looked like a guy who can be a number 1 option. And now if you can get Scoot to develop into your number 2, and then I like the role players that Portland
Not to
has.
mention Dame coming back next year and just standing in the corner shooting threes, right? Like,
Absolutely. I did look. If Scoot's ceiling is higher than what we've all thought it's going to be since he's been in the league, if his ceiling is really being a high quality number 2 to Avdia's number 1, then you start looking at the other role players that Portland has, the defense that Kamara provides. You've got Time Lord and Klingon on the inside, both of which, again, neither one of those guys is perfect, but they're a pretty good duo to have at the center
Robert Williams
position.
he had a great assist at the end of the game,
Great
man.
pass, great pass to Drew Holiday. But then he had the dunk too,
That,
which was very,
yeah,
which was very nice over Champagny on the alley oop. And Jeremy Grant, despite the fact that he's been in trade rumors seemingly for like 20 years, he continues to be
he's
a
the Rudy Gay of this generation.
He is. He definitely is. But he continues to be a valuable player. It's just the fact that he's making so much money. If you took his contract out of the equation, there'd be a lot of teams that would want to have Jeremy Grant on their team for what he does. Obviously, Drew Holiday's been outstanding for Portland. We know what he brings to the table from his time in Milwaukee and his time with the Celtics, 2 championship runs with those 2 teams. I just think that Portland, Shaden Sharp, who knows what he's going to develop in. Portland has a lot of interesting pieces that if Scoot really can get to that next level, it makes them very, very interesting moving forward. And look, in this series, if Wemby is out for any length of time and you're going back to Portland, I would say at worst, this is an even series at worst without Wemby. And if Wemby's going to miss 2, 3, 4 games in this series, I'm not so sure I wouldn't pick Portland to win it.
Yeah. All right. So what? I guess it's kind of hard to make a prediction because we don't know Wemby's situation. I'm going to say Spurs in 6. That's what I'm going to go with now. With the unknowns, I don't really feel good about Spurs winning the next 3 games, so I'm going to go Spurs. I just can't, in my right mind, can't pick Portland to win the series right now, and maybe they will, but with Wemby's uncertainty. But I'm going to say Spurs in 6.
Well, we have Portland going back home, but you know they're not getting T-shirts, right? Their fans aren't getting T-shirts. You heard that, right?
Is the owner's too cheap?
The owner's too cheap. He didn't travel. Their 2-way guys said they're not giving out T-shirts. There's a lot of smoke surrounding this new owner of the Blazers that he may be kind of a cheapskate. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know how much of it is truth. I don't know how much of it is just wanting to do things differently. I don't know. There was also a rumor. I think I heard it on. I think it was it. I don't know. I don't know
Boy,
what.
oh boy,
Who was I listening to this morning?
LeBron's on fire, Mike.
Is he?
LeBron's on fire. He just hit 2 threes. They're up 13
There you
right
go.
now, buddy.
There you go. Lakers. I heard it this morning. I think it must have been on a Windhorse or maybe it was on group chat that they talked about how they were having some of their staffers for Portland were instead of getting the late checkout that NBA teams normally get when they go over to the arena, that they were making some of their staffers check out of their hotels at the regular time to save some money so they didn't have to pay for late checkout. So if all those things are true, that is not a good sign for Portland moving forward. But let's not look at that. I think Portland probably gets at least one of these home games, which takes it to 6. And like I said, if Wemby's out, I'm not so sure I wouldn't pick Portland in 7, but I got to believe that he's going to be able to come back at some point in this series. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't even miss a game. And if he's on the floor, the Spurs clearly are the much superior team. But without him, I think the series is much more even. And like I said, I think I'd pick Portland if Wemby doesn't play again in this series, which again, that's not what I expect. But I'm going to say Spurs in 6 based on the fact that I believe Wemby's going to come back at some point.
All right, we'll circle back to this series that's going on right now. The Lakers were up 7 after 1, Mike, just really quickly. 24 points came from Smart and Kennard in the first quarter. LeBron's got 12 now after the 2 threes. Bronny James has come into the game and has had 2 turnovers in the first minute that he's been in the game. Might be time to get him out of the game. Coach Redick, Coach LeBron. All right. We'll shift to the games that played yesterday. We're going to do those games first, and then we'll do the other 2 series that have only 1 game. Does that make sense? That makes the most sense, right?
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
So we'll start with the Cavs just because we're going to go in the chronological order. So the Cavs played yesterday, went up 2-0. Listen, I texted you while I was watching the second half at my parents' house. My dad gets too worked up for a 67-year-old man during these NBA games. You would think that the Cavs, and we have not won a championship since 1950 something. We did win a championship 10 years ago, Dad. So we don't need to get all that worked up. This is not a Browns game. I kept telling him, Dad, remember this is not a Browns game. I don't know about you, but watching the game yesterday, even when they got it to 6, I wasn't worried. I was not worried at all. And, I just feel like we are way better than the Toronto Raptors. We could win by 2, and I'd be like, whatever. I think they're definitely. I do applaud Atkinson. He made some changes from game 1 to game 2. He did make some adjustments in the lineups. I don't necessarily know that the Schroeder lineup that he played at that one point should happen again. That was bad. Schroeder, I was kind of almost it was bad. Schroeder got hurt. He got hurt. I kind of said, I hope he's hurt because I had seen enough of him over that time period. I had seen enough. I hadn't seen enough of his nonsense. But the bottom line is Scotty Barnes. I don't know if you saw the video of him clapping in James Harden's face, and then the next possession he getting dropped to the ground today. Whether that was an offensive foul or not, I don't care. It was good. Brandon Ingram is, ever since the first half of the first game, has been a ghost, has been non-existent. Him calling out the coach after game 1, saying the coach thought I'd be a better screener, probably not a great look. And then completely no-showing yesterday, not a great look. Scotty Barnes had a great first half of the first game. He got in foul trouble, and that kind of cooled him off. Everyone else is just kind of there. Emmanuel quickly is very important for them, I understand that, but he's not swinging the pendulum for the series, okay? I don't think it's going to take 7 games, Mike. I'm really hoping it doesn't take 7 games. I think Toronto will get 1 in Toronto. Probably game. Part of me hopes that they get game 4 and not game 3. Then in my head, I'll start, thinking again about, I hope the Cavs get game 3, they get game 4, and then we just close it in 5. So that's where I'm at. I don't really know how much we want to blame. I think the Cavs are good. Listen, I want to make a oath with you right now. If the Cleveland Cavaliers make the NBA Finals, we buy James Harden jerseys. Will you swear to that, Mike?
I will. I'm in. Count me in.
Okay, so if the Cavs get to the NBA Finals, we're not saying they win the NBA Finals. If they get to the NBA Finals, we get James Harden jerseys. Because we'll have to mea culpa. That's our mea culpa for everything we said. We'll pull up the funeral we'll pull up the funeral pictures of me in all black and the somber. We'll pull it up and that'll be our meal copa. It'll be our donation to the NBA and the Cavs. We will and James Harden. We will purchase a James Harden jersey if they make the NBA Finals.
It's fair. James Harden, to this point as a Cavalier, has been everything that you could have hoped for in a positive direction for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He has been a guy who has looked to distribute more than shoot. He has been a guy who has handled the ball against pressure. He is, as we knew, a great, great, great passer. His vision, the
I did
things
not
that he
know he was as good as a passer as he is. I honestly did not, because he doesn't, because a lot of times what we see is not him passing.
correct. Watching him day in and day out and just seeing it all the time, you come to appreciate what a good passer is, both on the lobs, which everybody kind of knew, right? He's made guys who are rim rolling centers even better at every point in his career. And he's certainly done that for Jared Allen. And he's starting to get a little bit more chemistry with Evan Mobley. And the fact that he can run down the lane and then either shoot the floater or lob it up to one of those guys is a real weapon that teams are going to have a hard time defending, not just in this series, but in series moving forward if the Cavs advance. And so I think with Harden, it still comes down to when is the moment where you're going to need him. He's going to be the difference maker in if he plays well, we win and move on. If he doesn't, we lose
Can I
and
ask you
go
a
home.
question, Mike? Can I ask you a
Sure.
question?
Sure.
Do you think the threat of James Harden has made Donovan Mitchell's job that much easier? The theoretical threat of, or do you not think that James Harden has helped him? Because I
I
just feel
think
like Donovan Mitchell can just do everything and anything now, because everybody, when they're on the floor together, they can't just sag off of Harden, because if they sag off of Harden, he's going to drain a three, or he's going to get a lob, or he's going to attack the basket and then kick it to Mitchell again. I just think when the two of them are on the floor, we basically can score at will. Now, once again, we could talk about the defensive end of the floor, and Harden's not been terrible. There's been moments, but he's not. Mike's a little questionable on that. But offensively, they can do no wrong, right? Like, they're essentially right up to this point. When they're on the floor together, and it's good to know that we can take Donovan Mitchell off the floor and have James Harden, who is very competent at handling the ball and being constructive with the basketball, whether it's him shooting or passing or whatever, getting someone else a position. I almost think this is when Mitchell's on the floor without Harden, or when Harden's on the floor without Mitchell. I prefer the Harden on the floor without Mitchell minutes than I do the Mitchell on the floor with Harden minutes, because I feel like everybody expects Donovan to do everything. But when Harden's on the floor, you don't know when that ball's freaking coming to you. So you got to be ready. So I don't know how you feel about that. And I guess when that trade happened, I never would have thought that to be the case. But I feel like I enjoy watching the ball movement when Harden's on the floor without Mitchell way more than when Mitchell's on the floor without Harden.
okay. So here's why. Here's why you say that. And this is, I think, the key point with Harden. When you look at just forget about the ages of Harden versus Garland, but when you just look at James Harden as what he is today versus Darius Garland and what he is today, or what he was last year in the playoffs against Indiana, even when he's healthy. I think you're now at a point where with James Harden, one, his physical size, even if teams want to pick him up full court, he just can kind of bang his way down the floor and dribble, carry, bump, dribble, carry, and he gets the ball up the floor. He, in this role, in this mode that he's in right now, acting as point Harden and not scorer Harden. And that's not to say he hasn't been scoring, because he has, but he certainly has adopted for this team in this moment, fingers crossed, point guard James Harden. And what that has allowed Donovan Mitchell to do is to play off the ball and do what he does best, which is catch the ball and attack and try to go score. That is Donovan Mitchell's best skill, is whatever I do, I have the ball. I'm trying to get to my pull up. I'm trying to get to my drive. I'm trying to get to my signature over the top dribble move, whatever. Donovan Mitchell is a scorer. So when Mitchell plays without Harden, now you're asking Mitchell to handle the ball, because that is the one thing I will say, that the Cavs, without the ball in Harden's hands, bringing it up the floor, that's when they're susceptible to a team picking up full court or putting pressure on them. One, not that Donovan Mitchell can't bring the ball up the floor in those situations, but you're putting mileage on him. He's not as good at that as James Harden is. So you're putting that mileage on him. And then two, Donovan Mitchell is not a point guard. So even in the half court with the ball in his hands, the ball is not moving in the same way that you would expect it to. He's just not a point guard. He's Donovan Mitchell needs to score. And that's where having Harden next to him, that's why I think you like the minutes, because Harden is capable of being a point guard. And then obviously he's a guy who at one time put up 37 a game. So he's clearly capable of scoring. And so I think his versatility as an offensive player, he probably has a wider range of skill set than Mitchell does, because Mitchell, again, is just not a point guard. And then I think the other piece of it is, when Harden is off the floor, we don't really have, unless you count Schroeder, who hasn't been good to this point in these two games. He's
Get
looked,
me Keon Ellis minutes, please, for God's sakes. Holy Jesus, Kenny
but I,
Atkinson.
but I
And
think when they're
I know Keon Ellis is not a ball handle, like not a premier
right,
ball handler.
right,
And like Schroeder looks good when like there was all those they did it like two straight times where they switched and they had the big on him and he got by that guy. That guy cannot guard him. Okay, I get that. I understand that. And it wasn't Pirtle, it was the other guy who has been way better than Pirtle. Pirtle's basically been like a turnstile. He's terrible. Pirtle's terrible. Anyways, but anytime that every time that Schroeder attacked the basket or did anything, he took some terrible shots. He like as much as I said that he was going to be a valuable asset. I don't know. I don't. The question is, you can't give Keon Ellis the ball handling minutes. Do we go back? Like Craig Porter Jr. is completely out of the rotation. Like do we have? I mean, I know you got to tighten the rotation. Do you go back to Craig Porter Jr., Mike, or do you just ride? I mean, you listen. The youth of Craig Porter Jr. or the experience and the somewhat, I'm going to say it, Mike, Karis LeVert nature of Schroeder, because they're very much the same kind of player, except at least Schroeder has like a little bit of an edge to him, unlike LeVert, but they are essentially the same with the ball in their hands, kind of Karis LeVert. Do you agree with that? Do you agree it's Karis LeVert?
there's a lot of trick or treat with Dennis Schroeder, which was the same way it was with Karis LeVert, where I'm not sure exactly what I'm getting with Schroeder. I think for the Cavs, the problem is that there really is no other backup point guard that they're playing. And the 10 guys that are in the rotation, at some point, I think you and I talked about it off the air, that the rotation at some point probably is going to get tightened up. Right now, they're playing 10 guys, and I'm not sure that 10 guys are going to play when we get to a more hotly contested
Well,
series. So maybe,
not to mention, I think Thomas Bryant's going to get some run when he's back to playing because they need another big.
yeah,
That
probably.
those lineups that we run out there with the four little guys and the one big is not going to work when we play some of these other teams. Like it's just not going to happen. I think Thomas Bryant has to play minutes when he's healthy,
Yeah.
right? Do you
Yeah.
agree with
Yeah.
that?
I do. Because I think if you look at the next series, you're either going to get Detroit or Atlanta, which are two
No,
big
no,
physical
Detroit or
teams.
Orlando. Detroit or Orlando.
Detroit, yeah, Orlando. Sorry, Detroit or Orlando. And those are two big physical teams. And you're not going to be able to throw out the Struess, Schroeder, and
Merrill.
Sam Merrill lineups. You're not going to be able to put those three guys on the floor against either one of those teams because they just have too much size. So I think it's going to
If
be,
it's Orlando, you're definitely going to get Thomas Bryant minutes because Thomas Bryant's going to get into it with Franz. Get ready for it. That's
it,
like for sure
yeah,
happening.
it will be very interesting to see. I think, in all honesty, I think if you count Thomas Bryant as guy number 11, I think if the Cavs are, again, fortunate enough to move on to the Eastern Conference semis or the Eastern Conference finals, I think dependent upon the matchup, you may see some of those guys play big minutes, and you may see some of those guys' minutes cut to next to nothing. I think it is a problem that the Cavs don't have another reliable point guard, which is why I think if this series kind of continues the way it is, that Schroeder's going to continue to get minutes and Atkinson is going to try to figure out, is there a way that we can steal 8 to 10 minutes of Dennis Schroeder minutes at the point guard spot so that we can get one of Donovan Mitchell or James Harden a little bit of rest here and there. I could see him going back. Look, I've liked Craig Porter Jr. We've touted him on the pod many times that I just think when he's in there, he does a lot of good things and he's athletic, but it feels like Atkinson is given the first shot to Schroeder as the veteran. I don't know that I necessarily love that choice. Schroeder was really good in the regular season since he got here. I thought he played really well and did some good things. He hasn't been great in these first two games. I haven't liked his decision making. I feel like he's been looking to shoot first, whereas I think on this team he should definitely be looking to pass first. But I know he's kind of a hybrid point guard in that he likes to score, but that's one area that I think the Cavs will be susceptible to teams pressuring us simply because either A, you're going to wear Harden down, wear Mitchell down. If those two guys have to bring the ball up the court against some constant pressure and size, it could give them some trouble. Toronto just doesn't have the personnel to be able to do that. And I think the bottom line in this series, you can talk about all the stuff that we just discussed and go back and forth. The reality is that Toronto just isn't a good enough offensive team, even with Emmanuel Quickley, but certainly without him. I just don't see how Toronto can score with the Cavs. And Toronto's not good enough to lock down defensively where they can hold the Cavs under 110, 105 to give themselves a chance with what their offense is capable of doing. So I think that whatever adjustments Toronto wants to try to make, I'm not sure it makes any difference because they can't. I don't think they can adjust their way into slowing down the Cavs offense. And as a result of that, I just don't think their own offense isn't capable of scoring with the Cavs. So I know I originally said Cavs in 7. I still think Toronto, like you said, probably gets 1. I still don't fully trust everything about this Cavs team. I just think Toronto's just not very good. And without Quickly, that makes a big difference for them. Whatever slight chance they had of generating enough offense to beat the Cavs goes away when Quickly's not in the game. I'll revise my I'll stick with my I don't trust the Cavs, that there's going to be some stupid game in here that they're going to lose that they shouldn't. I'll say I'll temper it back to Cavs in 6.
Oh,
Cavs
come
in
on.
7.
Cavs in 5. All right.
Okay.
All right. A series that we both predicted was going to go 7 games. I'm pretty convinced that it's going to go 7 games. Knicks Hawks. It looked like the Knicks were going to get the dub yesterday and go up 2-0, and then the Hawks just CJ McCollum'd it. I don't know, like he just went crazy. He tore it up. 32 points, right? He ended with 32 points. I don't know. Did they say did he get? Here's the question: did he get fined for his post game comment, Mike?
I did not see anything on ESPN
Because LaMelo got fined for dropping the F-bomb. CJ said it, but he didn't say it directly into the microphone. He kind of was so. But I would think that he got. I'm trying to think. Column.
I don't see anything. I do not see anything right now.
I'm gonna see.
Nothing that I can see.
No,
so it could still be coming, but nothing that I can see. Yeah, McCollum was fantastic in the fourth quarter of that game. He's been really, really good for Atlanta. It's kind of crazy that he was sort of the veteran throw-in with Corey Kispert in the Trae Young trade, and he clearly made them much, much better than what they were getting out of Trae Young. I think the question in this game is, did the Knicks lose this game or did Atlanta win it? Or how much would you sort of percentage-wise put in either of those two categories? When I look at this, I just think the Knicks, this is why I've continued to say over and over again that I just don't see whatever team makes it out of the Eastern Conference and represents the East in the NBA Finals. I'm going to be shaking my head saying, I can't believe that that's the team that made it to the NBA Finals. And we've made the case for all these teams. And I think they're all the cases of why a team shouldn't make it have been fully on display in the series so far. Boston, we already talked about. Like Boston just is going to continue to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. And if the ball doesn't go in, they're going to lose. And they're not going to adjust what they do. And they have two guys who are just a shade under the best player in the league, best five players in the league conversation. And oftentimes that's not enough to win the title. And then look at the Cavs. We've talked about them over and over again. Detroit we'll get to. And this Knicks team, I don't know, like Towns disappears in the fourth quarter, but part of the reason why he disappears in the fourth quarter is because if you thought that James Harden was playing James Harden ball when he was in Houston, Jalen Brunson plays a lot of dribble, 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 dribble.
Yep.
Jalen Brunson shoots the ball. And look, I've said it before, Brunson, I'm deathly afraid of Jalen Brunson in the fourth quarter of a game. I think every shot that the guy takes feels like it's going to go in, but it makes them predictable. It makes them easier to guard. And it sort of takes those other four guys, whoever they have in at the end of the game, sort of takes them out of rhythm. And I don't know. I just feel like the Knicks do a lot of dumb things. They take dumb shots. They're not very good defensively. Towns is always good for something stupid or goofy that doesn't make any sense. I don't trust Anunoby's shot. I don't trust Mikal Bridges' shot. And the combination of all that stuff just kind of added up in the fourth quarter. I don't know if you looked at Twitter at all after that game, but there was an uproar of why didn't Mike Brown call a timeout? But apparently
They didn't have a timeout. I sent it to you. They didn't even have one.
that's what I'm saying. But on the TV, on the graphic, it showed that they had one timeout. So of course everybody was
Prime screwed
complaining.
up, man. Prime.
Correct. Well, was that NBC or was that Prime? I think it was NBC
Oh, it
last
was
night.
NBC. It was NBC. That's right. Prime
But
screwed up the. Prime screwed up. What did they screw up? They screwed something up over the weekend.
the technical difficulties. They had the technical
Oh yeah.
difficulties and the sound being ahead of the picture. Look, regardless of whether or not they had a timeout, and I guess you could say Bridges got a decent shot off in that situation, but I just I don't trust the Knicks' decision making. I don't think they've proved it over and over again that they've lost big leads. They don't win games that they should. I think being a Knicks fan would be incredibly, incredibly frustrating in a different way, maybe than being a Cavs fan. But I'm sure if you're a New York Knicks fan, you would say the exact same thing that you and I are sitting here saying about the Cavs, that I just don't trust this team in big moments. And they've proven that over and over again. And then you go to the Atlanta side of it, and McCollum was fantastic. I think Nickeil Alexander Walker has been, I mean, people know how good he's been over the course of the season, which no one saw coming, but he was really, really good in that game last night defensively. I thought he did a great job. So many times you watch NBA games and there's a ball screen and the teams theoretically don't want to switch the matchup, but they just kind of walk into the screen and just say, all right, there's nothing we can do. We're going to switch it. And last night, Alexander Walker was busting his butt to get over the
Well, he
top of the
got that steal
screens.
at the end of the game. He got that steal
Yeah.
at the end of the game.
I mean, he was just, I felt like he was everywhere and he just kept fighting his way over screens and staying attached to Brunson so they didn't have to switch. And I thought that was a big factor in what went on in the fourth quarter. And then obviously the Knicks, when Mitchell Robinson's on the floor, which he wasn't at the end of the game, but even so, the Knicks are a big team that rebounds pretty well. And I thought Atlanta got a ton of big defensive rebounds. And then as a result of that, they were able to get out into the open floor, and Jalen Johnson got the dunk that put them up 4. But they had a couple of, I don't know if clear fast break opportunities, but certainly opportunities where they were out in transition, where McCollum was able to score kind of as the Knicks were scrambling back on defense. And look, clearly, if we were the Cavs, everybody would have wanted to play. I think Toronto might be the worst team out of the 8. I don't think it's even close in the Eastern Conference playoffs. If Orlando, what we've seen from them in the last 2 games is real, which I don't know if it is or it isn't, but I think Orlando clearly has more talent than Toronto has. Whether or not they can put it together, I don't know. But Atlanta, I'm glad the Cavs didn't play Atlanta. Let's put it that way, because I think Atlanta's going to give the Knicks everything that they can handle. And at this point, I don't know. Atlanta doesn't have a lot of depth, and I'm not sure Jalen Johnson is. I'm not sure he's on the superstar level yet where he's going to be able to carry a team. He really hasn't done that in the first two games. McCollum's been the guy. And look, CJ McCollum's a great player, but I don't think he's ever made an all-star team. And he's certainly not considered
He
to be
has
this.
to have had an all-star experience.
I'm pretty sure he hasn't. I'm pretty sure he has not. I'm pretty sure he has
He
not.
did beat Duke. He did beat Duke in the NCAA tournament, though.
It's always a good. That's a feather. Lehigh. That's a feather. Or
that's
yeah,
that's it was Lehigh. It's where my wife went to school. You know that, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I don't think he's made an all-star. I don't think he has made an all-star team. But anyway, nonetheless, my point is that CJ McCollum has been a very, very good player for a long time, but he has not risen to the level of being a superstar who's going to carry a team in the playoffs. And yet, that's really what he's done since he's gotten to Atlanta. He's kind of been their fourth quarter clutch guy. And last night, up until missing the 2 free throws, which would have been a disaster for CJ McCollum and the Hawks, that to do all that they did and then to have him miss those 2 free throws at the end and then lose the game, that would have been a tough one for Atlanta to bounce back from. So I'm glad that's not the way it turned out. I think this is going to be a long series. I think we both had Knicks in 7.
I'm staying Knicks in 7. I'm saying Knicks in 7.
I agree. I'm going to stay with that prediction. I think Atlanta is going to give them everything that they can handle. I won't be surprised if Atlanta wins this series, but gun to my head, I'll take a Knicks win.
All right. 7. The last game yesterday, Mike, I don't know. We'll do this one, and then do you want to just speed through the other 2 series, because we're already at almost an hour. Do you want to do that? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, let's do Denver, Minnesota, and then we can. I think and then the other 2. I don't know, whatever.
We'll just when the other 2 we'll do and then we'll do the other 2, and we'll just say what do we think is going to happen. I guess.
Yeah, we can do it. We can do those 2 series quickly. There's since we've only seen one game of each of those series, I know that the other one's going on, but let's just do Denver and Minnesota.
Denver, Minnesota. I mean, what am I going to say? Like, Denver was terrible in the second half last night, and I fell asleep, Mike. In full honesty, I fell asleep midway through the third quarter. Aaron Gordon doesn't look right. He's hurt already. Jokic's threes, Mike. Jokic's threes may have looked like you and me shooting 3-pointers. Although you might be a better shooter. I don't know. I don't know what your shot looks like nowadays, Mike. But Jokic's threes were terrible. And the Wolves just there was a stretch in that second quarter that the Wolves, every time they brought that on the floor, they just scored. They just went to work. They got they did not have a good right. Am I correct? They did not have a good first quarter, and then they had a good second quarter. Right? I don't tell me.
I think it was 30. I think it was 39-24 Denver at the quarter, and then the second quarter 39-24
because it was tied at half.
Yeah,
because it was tied at half.
The quarter score flipped. So yeah, it was a complete turnaround. Jokic went out, and that kind of started Minnesota.
That's right, because I stopped. I went and did a few things, and then I went back and I texted you saying, "What the heck happened?" And you said Jokic went out.
It was pretty simple. That's what started the run. Can I just hit on your Jokic 3 point? I think, to me, that was the key to that game, and I think that's the key to Denver being able to make a long playoff run and potentially win a title. Jokic has to be able to make open threes, because when he does, I feel like it takes Denver to a whole nother level. And when he doesn't, teams just keep backing further and further off him. And it's almost like, again, they're daring him to shoot. And he's clearly been very, very good from 3 since he's ascended to the top of the NBA. But there are moments and there are times, there have been stretches where it feels like he doesn't look super confident, like he doesn't want to take them. And when he doesn't want to take them and he's not knocking them in, it takes away a big weapon for Denver. And to me, when I watch it, it's like he's got to take those shots, but you can almost tell that he doesn't really want to take them, that he doesn't feel confident, that he's so smart that he's like, I'm not sure this is a good shot, but again, he's wide open, so he has to shoot them. And he's been a whatever 38, 39, 40 plus percent 3-point shooter. So that's a shot that if you're Denver, you want your offense to generate. And yet, on nights when it doesn't go in, it really holds back what Denver can do offensively. I thought Rudy Gobert last night on defense was outstanding. Maybe the best I've seen him play against Jokic, and he's been very good against the Nuggets over the last couple of years. But I thought last night he was super impactful in just deterring Jokic and making him take. Not that Jokic doesn't always take a lot of tough shots, because he does, and most of the time he makes them. But I thought Gobert really, really made him work and was a huge presence around the rim that was a deterrent to everything that Denver was trying to do. And then offensively, Minnesota, you said it, it felt like they were able to score way too easily against Denver's defense. And they got pretty much anything they wanted, whether it was in transition, going up and down the floor with DiVincenzo and Naz Reid, whether it was Ant in the half court. I thought Julius Randle was excellent last night. Again, he's one of those guys, Jekyll and Hyde. Which version of Julius Randle are you going to get? If you get all NBA level Julius Randle, Minnesota is really, really tough to beat when Randle is at his best. And last night he had 24 and 9 rebounds and 6 assists. If Julius Randle plays like that, Minnesota has a real chance to win this series. If he doesn't, if he kind of turns back into the pumpkin that we saw him be in the playoffs with the Knicks sometimes, then I don't think Minnesota they can't generate enough offense if Randall's not going well. But when he's going well, it just unlocks so much else of what they want to do. And Minnesota, the advantage that they have over most of the teams that they're going to see is they're just huge and long, and they can disrupt lots of what you want to do. And then you always have Gobert at the back line. But you just think about, I mean, you look at the size that they're throwing out there with Ant, Gobert, McDaniels, who's 6'10, Randall 6'9 and has tremendous size. DiVincenzo's a big guard. And then you bring off the Sunmu off the bench, who's really good. Naz Reid is another guy who has length and size, and they're just a physical, big, fast team that can play lots of different ways, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And they've got Ant, who, again, you can quibble with where he ranks in the top 10 of the NBA, but he's a guy who carries himself like somebody who's who's the best player in the league. That's how he carries himself. And that's what he believes. And I think when you have that belief, and look, Minnesota is not in any way, shape, or form afraid of Denver in any way, shape, or form. You could watch it in game one when they lost. You watch it in game two. They are going right at Denver. And that's not to say that Denver's afraid of Minnesota, because I don't think that's true either. But there's no worry by the Minnesota Timberwolves that, hey, we don't know how to handle this team, or how are we possibly going to guard Jokic, or man, Murray's just going to torch us. They don't feel like that at all. They're just going to do what they do. They're going to attack. They're going to defend. And they did it really, really well in Denver last night. And the Nuggets haven't looked great in these first two games. And I mean, they had an uneven regular season, and now we'll see. They are in a tough spot. I know there was a lot of talk right, that we talked a little bit about it on the last day of the season, that had they lost that game, dropped to the 4 seed, now you're playing against the Rockets in round one, and then you do get Oklahoma City in round two. But chances are, if you want to win the West, you're probably going to have to go through Oklahoma City, and if San Antonio's healthy, Wemby. So you're probably going to get both of those teams anyway. So it was interesting that they decided to go ahead and win that game, and that the Spurs didn't want to win it to bump Denver out of the 3 seed, so that those two teams wouldn't have to match up. There was a lot of just, again, we talked about it, but weird stuff there. This series, we talked about before the playoffs in the preview, that we felt like this could be the best series. And I think these are the two best teams playing one another in the first round. These are two teams that whichever team wins has a legitimate chance to end up in the NBA Finals. I don't know that there's any other series that we're seeing in the first round where you could
Both
say that no
teams.
matter where both teams could potentially make the finals if they win. I don't think there's any other series where that's the case.
I agree. So what are you going with now? I'm
I'm
gonna
still
say
going to take.
Denver in 6. I'm gonna go Denver in 6.
I'm going to go Denver in 7. I think Minnesota's just that tough.
Okay. All right. So I don't know. We will do a quick whip around of the other games. Let's talk Lakers, Houston. Right now the Lakers are up 3 at half, Mike. They were up 15 at one point in the second quarter, and Houston went on a 14-0 run. Houston, from what I'm seeing, Houston looks obviously. I know this is a big surprise. Kevin Durant on your floor on your team severely improves your chances at winning. There have been lulls, obviously, where he isn't on the floor, and that's when they're getting hurt. Um, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, if I was a betting man, I would say Houston's going to win this game, and then the Cavs are standing tall as the only team still up 2-0. That will not continue tomorrow because I guess so. At this point, I think obviously there's a lot of we don't know when Luka and Reaves is out for the whole series, right? There's no chance he's playing this series. I
I
think
would think not, but who
if
knows?
they get to a game 7, maybe you try rolling the dice and see how he. I mean, what's it hurt to have him dress and try to see if he can go? I guess maybe that's that. But I don't know. I think I said Houston in 6, and you gave me a lot of crap for that. But I think that's where I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. If the Lakers, so here's the question, Mike. If the Lakers win tonight, so I'm gonna here's my standpoint. If Houston wins tonight, I'm gonna go Houston in 6. If the Lakers win tonight, I'm going Lakers in 7.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair. This series is goofy in so many ways. Obviously, without two of the Lakers' main guys, and then Durant missing game one completely skews kind of what you're looking at. Game one was such an oddity statistically. I know it's been said in many other places and written about, but the fact that Houston took 93 shots in game one and the Lakers took 66 shots in game one. So Houston took 27 more shots than the Lakers and still lost by 9. It's crazy. They took the same amount of free throws, well, off by 1. The Rockets took 25 and the Lakers took 26. It's just kind of an incredible stat line that a team could take 27 more shots than another team and still lose by almost double digits. It's crazy. I just don't think Houston, they're similar to Toronto in that I just don't know how they generate offense. Like, I don't love the let's give the ball to Şengün and let him dribble back down 7 dribbles and try to get into the lane and then create something. And they just don't have enough shooting. So when teams double team Şengün or he gets the ball in the post and he gets into the lane, there's really nobody for him to spray it out to that you want taking threes. I mean, they have some guys that occasionally can make one, but Reed Shepard's really the only shooter that they have, unless obviously Durant's in the lineup. I just think offensively they are super challenged. They've been challenged all year, and I don't think that's going to change. I think going into the series, what you thought is that how are the Lakers going to generate offense without Luka and without
Marcus
Austin
Smart has
Reeves?
17 tonight, Mike.
That's what I'm saying. So the Lakers have had guys, Kennard in game one, Marcus Smart tonight, that have stepped up to be able to fill that scoring void. And look, LA doesn't have to be tremendous on offense because we know that the odds of Houston having a great offensive game, an efficient offensive game, probably are pretty low. I think Houston, when you look at their season and you think about sort of what they could be if they were the fully realized version of the Houston Rockets, and I know that it hasn't been this way the entire season, but if you plug Fred VanVleet back into this lineup and then you plug in Steven Adams back into this lineup, and now you're doubling down on the offensive rebounding and just brute size that they had when Adams was healthy. And then you have a competent point guard in Fred VanVleet who's been in big moments. Suddenly now the Rockets look a lot
Did,
different. And
Mike, did you know that Uncle Jeff Green is on the Rockets? Did you know this?
I did know that because you know how I knew that? There was a game late in the season where for some reason I was watching a Rockets game and I'm like, is that Jeff Green? And sure enough, Uncle Jeff Green is still hanging around in the league. So kudos to him.
Yeah.
Kudos to
So
Uncle
Mike,
Jeff.
the two benches for this in this game tonight have combined for a grand total of 8 points.
Yeah, the depth on these two teams is not really the strength of
Well, I think
either
the
team.
Lakers would be the depth would be better if the two guys were
Well,
playing,
yeah, of
right?
course. Look, I don't know. I find it fascinating and hard to believe that LeBron is going to be able to lead this ragtag group of individuals to a playoff series win. But then I look over at the other side with Houston, and they just have had such a weird season. And a lot of times when I watch them on offense, I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to accomplish. And I like their guys. Like I like Şengün. I like Amen Thompson. I like Jabari Smith. I like Tari Eason. I like Reed Shepard. Like these guys are all good players. It's just they're one of those teams that I'm just not sure the puzzle pieces all
Yeah.
fit together, or maybe they should fit together in a different way. And Ime Udoka just hasn't figured out what that particular way is. So I still think I still think the Rockets have to win this series. Maybe if the Lakers go up 2-0, it's going to be really, really hard. But I'm going to go Rockets. Game 7 is going to be in LA. I'm going to go Rockets. I'm going to go Rockets in 6. I'm going to have faith in the Rockets.
Regardless of the outcome tonight, you're going Rockets in 6.
Rockets in 6. I'm going to go
Okay.
Rockets in 6.
All right. So then we're going to whip through the two series that only have one games. Let's one game played. Let's start with the one that I think we're going to agree on. Oklahoma City is sweeping the Phoenix Suns.
Yes. There's nothing to
Okay,
say
done.
there.
Done. Okay, done and dusted. All right. Detroit and Orlando. Orlando is a different team, like
Are they? But see, here's the thing. Against Philly, watching that game and watching the body language and the interaction
the body
between
language doctor was not vibing.
the players, the coaching staff, like that team against Philadelphia seriously looked like they were one of the most unhappy teams. Like you can tell when a team is just unhappy and
Yeah,
doesn't want to be there.
yeah.
And they looked unhappy like they didn't want to be there. And then they go to Charlotte and or
Annihilate.
Charlotte comes to them. Sorry,
And,
Charlotte
get,
comes to
and
them.
Charlotte gets annihilated.
They jump all over them. They annihilate them. They qualify for the playoffs. Then all of a sudden they go to Detroit and they look like the idealized version of the Orlando Magic.
Theoretical Orlando Magic.
Whenever I think of the Orlando Magic right now in my own head, I go back to 2 years ago against the Cavs when the Orlando Magic came into Cleveland and broke the Cavs 16 game winning streak. And the only reason why I really remember that game is because I was there at that game. And that version of the Orlando Magic with Paolo operating at full strength and getting
And
to the
Paolo
rim.
wasn't even great in game one, right?
I mean, he was fine. But fine in a standpoint of what they need him to do. And look, over the course of his career, Paolo has been really good in the playoffs. But they need him to be less of a guy who forces shots and more of a guy who kind of fits in. Again, this is when they have their entire lineup. Maybe if they're down a guy or two, you need Paolo to be more of a ball hoggy, ball stopper type of player. But with the lineup that they have, I mean, if you're really going to have all their lineup healthy, if you have Suggs, Bain, Franz, Paolo, and Wendell Carter Jr., if that's the lineup that you have out on the floor, you don't need Paolo to dribble, and go into a pull up mid range jump shot. You need Paolo to move the ball, to attack the rim, to do the things that he's capable of doing. And look, the best version of this Orlando Magic team is big. They're physical at every one of those positions. Every single one of those guys is a physical player. And they have length. Look, I don't want to say they have toughness because I don't know that a team that has toughness ends up with a regular season the way that they have, but certainly they are capable of playing physically. Let's put it that way. And they're just really, really difficult to play against when they're fully healthy and engaged. Now, are they engaged because these last two games have gone well and things have broken right for them right from the opening tip. And maybe if Detroit comes out in game 2 and takes a lead, we'll see all the faces and the pouting and the moping around that we were seeing a week ago. Maybe that will all return and Detroit's going to go on and win this series in 5 or 6 games. But if I'm a Detroit fan, I'm really, really nervous because I think going into the season, most people thought Orlando was going to be better than Detroit. And usually going into a season, the reason why you think that is because you believe that the team that you think is going to be better has better talent. And I think if you go position by position and you start talking about would one team trade their guy for this guy, I think Orlando would probably win all those trades except for probably the Cade for Paulo. People would take Cade over Boncaro, but I'm not so sure that the next, if you match them up position by position, that you wouldn't go with the guys from Orlando. So this series, I still think Detroit is going to win it because I just don't trust what I've seen from Orlando, despite how good they've really been. But I think Orlando's ceiling, the best version of Orlando is better than Detroit. It's better than it's better than the best that Detroit can bring. I just don't know that Orlando, based on how they played the entire season, I don't know how I can truly think that they're going to be able to bring what they've brought the last 2 games consistently. It just seems inconceivable that you could play the whole season kind of in this stupor and indifference, and all of a sudden the Magic is like a flip the switch
But
2001
Mike,
Lakers team.
it's Indiana Pacers last year.
But Indiana played well down the second half of the season, right?
That's
Indiana
true.
was like Indiana was like 500 halfway through the season, and then they really turned it on over the second half of the season. Orlando really turned it off over the second half of the
Yeah,
season. They
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 were
were
checked
they
out.
were they were terrible and inconsistent throughout the entire season. Now, granted, they've had injuries and everybody's back healthy, which makes a difference. But they just looked. I've never seen a team in the playoffs or the play-in or whatever with a chance to compete in the postseason that looked as just down in the dumps as they did during that game in Philadelphia. They all had mug smile, they all just looked, again, they had scowls on their faces. They didn't look happy. They were disgruntled. Their coach looked disgruntled, looked like Mosley had no idea what he was doing, and they just looked dead in the water.
Yeah,
And for them to revive in 2 games to where now I think there's a lot of people thinking that Orlando is going to win this series, and I won't be
Mike,
surprised if that
Mike,
happens.
Mike, Mike, Mike.
Yeah, yep,
I'm
yep.
taking Orlando in 6 because JB Bickerstaff is a terrible coach and just spent the last 5 minutes of the game complaining to the officials. I don't know if you noticed it. I clocked it yesterday. I'm sitting there watching, and he's pointing at the officials, doing this thing, doing the same crap that he did when he coached the Cavs. And I said, I'm out, Detroit. I'm out. I'm out on this. And honestly, I would rather see Detroit than I would want to see Orlando because at least I know that JB Bickerstaff would be the coach of Detroit and would be coaching against the Cavs, and I would feel really confident in the Cavs. I'm out. I'm taking Orlando in 6 because I don't trust the Detroit JB Bickerstaffs.
It's fair, totally fair. And I think that if I would have picked one team that would have fallen apart in the playoffs unexpectedly as a result of their coach, I definitely would have picked the Detroit Pistons and JB Bickerstaff. So that's fair. I'm going to stick with Detroit and their consistency over the course of the year. Obviously, you would expect a 1-8 to be a lot easier series than what Detroit is in for. I'm going to go Detroit in 7, and I will not be stunned. I will not be stunned in any way if Orlando ends up winning this series. So
I just saw LeBron just got whacked so hard and fell to the ground, and I'm like, if I got hit like that and fell to the ground at my age, I'm 2 years younger than LeBron, I would not feel good. I can't. I had to hurt. It was not as bad as Wemby's fall. Şengün, by the way, tonight, Mike, is 3 for 11.
It's not good.
And that's with DeAndre Ayton guarding him.
Houston needs more from Şengün than 3 for 11. I'll tell you that much.
And yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Durant's trying to do everything. Lakers now up 4 with 8.5 minutes left in the third. Sounds like you're going to be watching the game while you've edited the podcast.
That will be true. I will be shifting locations to move down in front of my TV and doing my editing. Which,
Well, now that you have Peacock, you're set.
I'm set. I can do whatever I want now that I have a month of Peacock to be able to watch all these
By the
sweet
way, can I tell
games.
you some bad news? Do you have NBCSN? Do you have that channel?
Isn't that Peacock?
No, NBA, NBC, and if you have that, you could have watched the game yesterday without buying Peacock.
I don't
But
know if I have that or not. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
my dad did, but my dad has access to Peacock from me anyway. So,
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. It all worked out. I got it for my $11 or whatever it was.
well,
That's
listen,
nothing for
it'll
me.
get you through. It'll get you through when the Cavs are still in it.
Yeah, it'll get me through round one. It got me the Celtics game tonight too, so
Yeah,
I
I
got
don't
to
even
see the
know
end of this.
how much of these games are going in the second round. How much of these games are going to be on Prime and Peacock? Is it going to continue? Is it going to
I
continue?
don't know. I don't know. I have no idea, but it's let's put it this way. I know we're on the older spectrum, or at least I am,
Now,
in
wait a
terms of
second. Come on now. Come on. I have Mike. Mike, can I tell you a little hint? Here's a little hint.
yeah,
Here's what you should do.
sure. What
Here's
should
what you
I
do.
do?
Black Friday.
Yeah.
You sign up for all the streamers with an email that you're not using. So here's what HBO Max, $2.99 a month for 12 months, as opposed to $9.99.
I think I have
Peacock.
HBO Max. I think I have HBO Max free with something that I already own or
Okay,
something
okay.
that I
Well, that's
already
one.
have.
Step two, Disney Plus plus Hulu, $4.99 a month for 12 months. Okay, so I'm now there. You go. I knocked those two out of the park. Peacock, $4.99 a month for 12 months. I did this all at Black Friday with a new email address. I'm
Work.
giving the people. I'm giving the people what they need to hear. Okay,
I like it. I like
so
it.
so I'm paying. So I'm paying $13 a month for something that if I didn't have this Black Friday deal, I would be paying. Let's see, 99 for Peacock, 9.99 for HBO Max, and I think 13.99. So I would be paying. I'm paying. I'm paying half, if not better than half, of what I should be paying. So you
Good
got to
work.
get in. You got to get in when the iron's hot at Black Friday, Mike. I'll send you a reminder.
Send me a cable bill, man, and then get me some stuff that actually works that I can actually see that doesn't
I
freeze
don't even
up
know
and
if you
start
can get
spinning.
cable anymore. Can you even get cable anymore, Mike? That's the
I
question.
don't, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe I'll just start using an antenna. I don't know. I'm not sure what
Well,
I'm gonna do.
I'm just impressed your internet is working well tonight. After
It
what we
is.
started with, we did a
Yeah.
good job.
So far so good. All right. Let's leave it there. So we are not halfway through round one, but we've got a bunch of game twos in the books. We got two more to go here to see where we're going to be at. So next week, I'm guessing we'll have at least one or two of these series probably wrapped up. And we maybe be able to talk a little bit about round two, but more than likely, we'll still be analyzing round one. And if anything ridiculously insane happens between now and then, and one or both of us are awake and available on any given night that we can coordinate, who knows? Maybe you'll see us on a different night. So thanks for checking out tonight's NBA episode of the Hoopheads Pod, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks.